If you were an Indiana Fever fan, if you're a Caitlin Clark fan, it was a brutal game to sit through. No Caitlin Clark, no Sophie Cunningham, no Chloe Bibby.
Indiana Fever fans just sat through one of the ugliest games of the year, and you didn't need to be an expert to see why. Caitlin Clark wasn't out there. The Atlanta Dream didn't just win. They flat out exposed everything the Fever struggled with when Clark's on the bench. Aaliyah Boston couldn't get going, Natasha Howard disappeared, and by halftime fans online were already begging for Clark's return. And honestly, can you blame them? Without Clark, this team looks lost. She isn't just the face of the franchise, she's the engine that keeps the Fever alive. Take her out, and it feels like Indiana starts the game already down 10 points. That's how big her impact is. So here's the real question. Without Caitlin Clark, do the Fever even belong in the playoff conversation?
And I've said it before, it's my understanding that Natasha Howard was signed to be the fourth big star on this team. And if Caitlin Clark is not playing, well, it seems to me like Natasha Howard should move up and it becomes a big three, right? The only problem is only one of your now intact big three decided to show up, and it was Kelsey Mitchell.
The Fever's so-called Big Three, without Clark, was supposed to be Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, and Natasha Howard. The problem? Out of that group, only one player looked like she got the memo that this was a playoff game. Spoiler alert, it wasn't Boston. It wasn't Howard. It was Kelsey Mitchell, dragging the team on her back, while the others played like the season ended last week. Don't forget to subscribe for more Fever breakdowns, WNBA updates, and daily hoops talk. Only here on Celeb Zone Daily.
That noise as well. Maybe. Mitchell floats it in. Close the foul.
Mitchell actually showed up. She poured in 27 points in just 33 minutes, hitting 9 of 18 shots. And let's be real, she looked like the only Fever player out there with both a pulse and a game plan. As for the rest of the squad, yeah, let's just say the box score is doing them no favors. Aaliyah Boston, the golden child, last year's #1 pick, the player who was supposed to be the franchise cornerstone right next to Caitlin Clark. And what did we get? A complete disappearing act. 3 of 9 from the field, just 8 points. And don't let that number fool you. She had 4 points deep into the fourth quarter. A couple of garbage time buckets made the box score look less pathetic, but anyone who actually watched knows the truth. When the Fever needed her most, Boston was a ghost. And then there's Natasha Howard. You want invisible? She gave you invisible. 2 for 7 shooting, 5 points. That's 28% if you're doing the math at home. This is a 2-time All-Star, a 3-time WNBA champ, an All-WNBA talent in 2019. Last season, she averaged over 17 a game. And now, in a playoff game with Clark sidelined, her grand statement was, 7 shots is enough, I'm good. Excuse me? 7 shots? That's like showing up to a potluck with a single bag of chips and acting like you cooked Thanksgiving dinner. Here's the bigger issue. When Clark isn't on the court, it's supposed to be Boston and Howard's moment. Their chance to take the wheel, demand the ball, and show that they're more than passengers on Caitlin's train. Instead, they just stood on the platform and waved goodbye as the season rolled away. And if you looked around Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the story was the same. Empty seats everywhere. Don't give me announced sellout. Chairs don't lie. Rows of white seats, only half filled once fans from the nosebleeds trickled down. The message was clear. Without Caitlin Clark, people aren't exactly sprinting through those doors. And it's not just ticket sales, it's energy. The building was flat, dead. Kelsey Mitchell is out there busting her tail, and half the arena looks like they'd rather be home binging Netflix. Fever fans show up for Clark. Period. Without her, it's a completely different world. Now, the game itself. Final score, 80-68, but honestly, it wasn't even that close. Atlanta controlled it from the jump. By halftime, you knew exactly how this one was ending. The Fever were sluggish, disorganized, and offensively clueless. That's the part that stings. This isn't some young roster with no experience. Howard has rings. Boston isn't a rookie anymore. No excuses for looking lost. Because here's Sports 101. When your star is out, Somebody else has to step up. Instead, Boston and Howard shrank under the lights. They didn't look like leaders, they looked like role players. And role players don't win you playoff games.
I'm still mad. This was a winnable game for the Indiana Fever in round one. Game one versus the Atlanta Dream. We had the opportunity to steal one. We came out with the right energy, the right focus. The second quarter, they made adjustments. They upped their intensity, slowed down the game, upped their physicality, and we just didn't make any adjustments. Yes, the referees were clowns. Yes, Aaliyah Boston was a no-show. Yes, Natasha Howard looked like a fossil out there on the floor who should not be in the league because she's washed. Yes, all of that is true. Our head coach, Stephanie White, is a bonehead. All of that is true. And with that being said, we had an opportunity to win. And now we have Stephanie White at the podium with no idea on what to do to help us win a game.
Stephanie White, the head coach of the Indiana Fever, didn't exactly help her own cause in this playoff meltdown. Sure, she's dealing with injuries, but let's be honest, some of her decisions and rotations were questionable at best. How do Aaliyah Boston and Natasha Howard, your supposed cornerstones, combine for just 16 shot attempts in a playoff game without Caitlin Clark? That's flat out insane. These two should be demanding the ball, each taking 12 to 15 shots minimum. Instead, Odyssey Sims ends up with 7 attempts, Aerial Powers gets 4, and Shaw Petty chips in with 2. No disrespect to those players, but if they're the ones carrying your offense in the postseason, you're already cooked. And then there was White's sideline moment, picking up a technical foul. Some fans tried to spin it as fire, as some kind of bold statement of leadership. Sorry, but that's not leadership. A tech doesn't magically wake up Aaliyah Boston. A tech doesn't make Natasha Howard suddenly play like a champion. It was too late, too small, and ultimately just a distraction. Now, let's talk about the officiating. The refs were terrible. Missed calls, phantom fouls, inconsistency across the board. And not just one way, both teams got hosed. The WNBA might have the worst officiating in all of professional sports, and this game was Exhibit A. But here's the bottom line. The refs didn't cost Indiana this game. The Fever lost because 2 of their 3 stars flat out disappeared. And guess what? The fans know it. Fever fans aren't dumb. They see exactly what's happening. They know this team lives and dies with Caitlin Clark. And after watching Boston put up 8 points and Howard stumble to 5, they're not wrong to demand her return. Without Clark, this team looks flat, uninspired, and, frankly, unwatchable. The reality is simple. Fans aren't spending hard-earned money to watch Boston throw up a weak 8 or Howard sneak by with 5. They want Caitlin Clark. Period. And they're not shy about saying it. Which brings up a much bigger question. How much patience do Fever fans really have left for Boston and Howard? Boston is young, sure, but she's supposed to be a franchise cornerstone. Nights like this don't exactly inspire confidence. Howard, she's a veteran. She's been there. She has rings. She knows what it takes. And yet, instead of demanding the ball, instead of taking over in Clark's absence, she drifted into the background. She played like a role player hiding in the shadows. That's unacceptable. And let's not overlook the shooting numbers. Between Boston, Howard, and Lexi Hull, the trio went a combined 8, 4, 29. And out of all those shots, they managed to hit just 1 3-pointer. 1. In 2025. In professional basketball. That's not just bad, that's embarrassing. So yeah, Fever fans were heated. And they had every right to be. Watching your team get bullied by the Dream while your supposed stars vanish is brutal. And Clark's absence made it all the more obvious. Without her, this team isn't special. They're just another forgettable WNBA squad. Because here's the hard truth. Caitlin Clark isn't just a player. She's the lifeline of this franchise. She's the reason Gainbridge Fieldhouse sells out. She's the reason kids are rocking Fever jerseys. She's the reason ESPN runs highlight reels of Indiana basketball. Without her, the Fever fall back into irrelevance. Fans aren't going to sit quietly while Boston and Howard pretend to be franchise players. They're going to demand Clark's return loudly. Take Boston, for example. She was drafted number 1 overall to be a dominant interior presence, to control the paint, own the glass, and be the kind of player who gets easy buckets when nothing else is working. Instead, she's out here going 3 for 9 like she's testing shots in a scrimmage. You're the franchise big. Your star guard is out, and you only get 9 attempts? That's not bad luck. That's bad basketball IQ. And Howard, don't even get me started. This woman has rings. She's been to all-star games. She's proven she can score at a high level. And in a playoff game without Clark, she clocks in with 2 of 7 shooting and 5 points. That's when you're supposed to step up, not step back. That's when you grab the ball and remind everyone why you're a champion. Instead, she played like she'd rather clock out early. Meanwhile, Kelsey Mitchell is out there dropping 27, working her tail off, and probably wondering if she accidentally wandered into a YMCA run because no one else on her team is matching her energy. And here's the thing, Mitchell is a scorer, no doubt. But she's not Clark. She's not built to carry a franchise on her back night after night. That's Caitlin's role. And without her, the whole operation falls apart. So let's not sugarcoat this. Fever fans were robbed. They didn't buy tickets to see Stephanie White clap like it's a middle school scrimmage. They didn't show up to watch Boston sleepwalk through the paint or Howard act like a role player. They paid for Caitlin Clark. She is the draw. She is the show. She is the reason Indiana basketball is relevant again. And the league knows it too. With Clark, arenas are packed. ESPN is shoving highlights down your throat. Merch is flying off the shelves. Without her, empty seats, empty energy, empty hope. And if the Fever don't figure this out soon, they won't just lose games, they'll lose their fan base. Because here's the reality. Clark isn't just Indiana's best player. She is the Indiana Fever. And if the front office keeps hiding her behind excuses, they're not protecting her body. They're protecting their own bad decisions. Without Clark, the Fever aren't just vulnerable. They're exposed. She's a scorer, sure, but she's not a franchise savior. That's Caitlin's job, and everyone knows it. Let's not sugarcoat it. Fever fans were robbed. They didn't buy tickets to watch Aaliyah Boston miss layups or Natasha Howard look like she's forgotten what basketball is. They didn't show up to see Stephanie White clapping on the sideline like she's coaching a junior high scrimmage. No, they came because Caitlin Clark is the show. She's the draw. She's the only reason half the country even knows the Indiana Fever exists. And don't pretend the league doesn't get it. When Caitlin's in the lineup, you've got packed arenas, ESPN shoving highlight reels down your throat, jerseys flying off the shelves, and kids rocking number 22 like it's the hottest brand in town. Without her, those white empty seats in Gainbridge look like they were prepped for a clearance sale. Now here's where the sarcasm comes in. We keep hearing the same excuses. We've got to manage Caitlin's minutes. Protect her body. Think long term. Sounds noble, right? Sounds like they're putting the player first. But let's be real. If Caitlin Clark is healthy enough to play and you're still parking her on the bench, you're not protecting her. You're protecting your own bad coaching decisions. Because here's the truth. Without her, you're exposed. All the flaws come rushing out. The lack of depth. The inconsistency of the so-called bigs. The confusion in play calling. Suddenly, it's all on display for everyone to see. Think about it. When Caitlin's on the court, she stretches defenses. She forces double teams. She creates space for Boston, Howard, Mitchell. She makes their jobs easier. But when she's gone, Boston has to actually create her own shot. Howard has to carry responsibility. Mitchell gets trapped. And the whole offense collapses like a cheap folding chair. And don't forget the fans. Some of them traveled hours just to see Caitlin play. Families dropping hard-earned cash on tickets, hotels, food, gas. They came for the biggest star in women's basketball, and instead, they got 8 points from Boston and 5 from Howard. You think those fans are eager to come back next week? You think they're grabbing season tickets next year? Good luck with that. Here's the bigger issue. The Fever are playing with fire. Caitlin Clark isn't just their best player. She's their brand. And brands are fragile. Keep giving fans empty seats, empty stats, and empty excuses, and they'll move on. They'll watch her highlights on YouTube. They'll wait for Team USA. Or maybe they'll follow her when she eventually decides she's had enough and takes her talents somewhere else. But they won't keep throwing money at a team that refuses to face the obvious. Your future is sitting on the bench while you're losing by double digits. Now let's circle back to that dream game. Final score, 80-68. On paper, not a blowout. But if you actually watched it, you know it was never close. The Fever looked flat, lifeless, out of ideas. The Dream weren't even spectacular. They didn't have to be. They just played steady basketball and let Indiana beat themselves. That's the sad part. This wasn't about talent. It was about effort. And without Caitlin Clark, Indiana has none. So now fans are saying the quiet part out loud. Bring Caitlin back or we're done. They're not asking politely anymore. They're demanding. And honestly, you can't blame them. This franchise was irrelevant for years. Then Clark arrives, the biggest star the women's game has seen in decades, and suddenly the Fever are on the map. But the second she's gone, poof, the old Fever returns. And nobody, absolutely nobody, is paying to see that. The Fever front office better wake up fast. Because if they keep making these long-term management decisions, they're going to lose more than games. They're going to lose their fans. And once that happens, no amount of Kelsey Mitchell 27-point nights is saving them. Caitlin Clark is not just a player. She is the Indiana Fever. And if this team doesn't start treating her like it, they're about to watch the whole thing collapse.